Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. Thank you. English area celebrating Ms. Hilda Joyce, VI author. And it's National Library Week. I grew up going to the library every Saturday. I loved it. In those days, they had actual books in the hand, you know. Now you do it all online. So April 3rd through 9th, National Library Week. Did you get a snack before you came in? Did you see the little cupcakes out there? If you didn't, be sure you get one as you leave, okay? There's juice and there are snacks. Celebrating. Well, you know what? There are programs right up here. So why don't you come get, I see some right over here. So why you want to hand them out? We have programs. I didn't know because I just came. No one told me what's going on. But I see that there are programs. Thank you. The students over here are getting programs, so that's a good thing. Let me see what I'm supposed to do here. I want to thank Nicole Hatfield so much, and Lindsay, and the librarian on St. Croix's name I don't remember right now. Thank everyone for helping us get hooked up across campuses, because I came to the library Monday afternoon and said, you know, we'd like to see people on St. Croix. We'd like to have them to have the opportunity to hear and see us, as well as having the celebration for people on St. Thomas. And so it was arranged. So I'm really glad about that. All right. I don't know what the Grandma Tilly is. Perhaps Professor Wein will explain that. And the agenda, let's look at the agenda. I'm doing the welcome, and Professor Linda Weimer will continue apparently. Then we have background and introductions, student readers. She'll pronounce the names for us to make sure she gets it right, because I might mispronounce your name, okay? But she's going to pronounce them for us, and you already know what you're doing with her, because I know she plans very, very well. So I'll go ahead and give you a little bio of Hilda Joyce so you know who she is. She's joining us by Zoom. We thought she'd be here in person today, but she wasn't able to join us. But she is joining us by Zoom. So Hilda Joyce, born in 1938 in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. She received a Bachelor of Science degree in Secretarial Science and an MA degree, Master of Arts degree in Business Teacher Education from Morgan State University and Michigan State University, respectively. Hilda Joyce was here at the university for many years. When I came, she was already administrator. Before that, she had been a teacher and then dean of business. Then she was administrator, special assistant. And Linda Weimer, Professor Weimer, worked in the same building with her. The building that's under construction now in this part of the campus was the building where they worked together and where I got to know Dr. Joyce. So eventually she decided to retire, but as she was getting ready to retire at the age of 60, she rediscovered she was an artist and a writer. And because she's also a business person, she wanted to do more with that than just tell her young relative stories, for example. So she put her stories into beautiful little books, some of which we have on display for you to see. Please don't take them away, though. They're going to go in the special Caribbean collection so that others can use them and do research on them. She also is an illustrator. She began with charcoal portraits of friends and family, and soon people were paying her to do portraits. And she was gracious enough to have me and some of my students at one point to her home some years ago, where she had a beautiful, huge mural of Christ at Easter, the risen Christ. It was beautiful. So she quite developed her art. And then she began making business cards and bookmarks and greetings cards and all kinds of things. She was going to open a shop, but things happened in the economy and she didn't do that. But we are glad that Linda Weimer kept her items together so preciously and brought them to me so we could share them in this way. So let me continue. After she decided to retire from the Virgin Islands, working here 35 years as Associate Professor of Office Administration, as Chair of the Division of Business, and as Director of Academic Administration. In the year 2000, she discovered this recapturing of her talent for faces, drawing faces with charcoal and sometimes with ink and other mediums. While creating several of her portraits, she sensed the images were communicating with her as though they had a story to tell. And that takes some imagination. First, the drawing, you say, well, these people I'm drawing, some of whom were people that she knew, her own family. So it's like they're telling me stories after I draw their faces. So she began to write the stories. So connecting the art with words primarily through the creation of short stories, she's given voice to selected pieces of her images in charcoal. So she created portions of her stories to give life to images she had already created, and others she began to create images to match the stories she wrote. Some of her artwork has been published in the Caribbean Writer, and I Don't know if we have those images with us. I printed them for us to bring today, and I had hoped the librarians might have them, but maybe not. But they're in volumes 16, 18, and 23 of the Caribbean Writer. She has an internationally recognized literary anthology with a Caribbean focus, and she's been published in the Caribbean Writers, as I said, several times. 2 of her short stories, The Special Barrels and a portion of a story called Everybody Has a Story in Him, has been published in a collection called All This Is Love, a collection of Virgin Islands art, poetry, and prose. And that was self-published by 5 writers in the Virgin Islands. And it can be purchased at www.authorhouse.com. So authorhouse.com. So just like author, AUGHOR, right? Did I spell it right? Yeah, okay. Okay. www.authorhouse.com. Portraits of a Time Past. She says through her works of fiction, she hopes the reader can peer into the windows of life the way it used to be in the Virgin Islands. Over 50 years ago, from slavery to emancipation, from Danish rule to American administration, from a poorhouse, in quotes, to what President Hoover called the paradise, the United States paradise, the U.S. Virgin Islands, to the fast developing tourist economy in the 1960s, to the carnival festivities of the 1980s and beyond. She says, some stories in my books are just for children, but they're for children of any age, and some are not really children's stories. So without further ado, let me introduce my esteemed colleague, Professor Linda Weimer. Come up here where they can see you, Professor, on the camera.
Not that way, not that way.
Oh, yes, the other way. Sorry. Let me be over here.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to National Library Week. And I'm so happy to see all my students, well, most of my students here, and to our viewing audience, welcome. Okay, and you're going to be thoroughly entertained this afternoon by the Readers Theater Group that has put together for this presentation to honor and celebrate Hilda Joyce and her being a Virgin Islands author and publisher and artist. You don't get that combination often. Okay, my students are completely astounded. Okay, whenever I showed them her picture, they said, wow, she's pretty. And I said, yes, she is. Okay, and they're sorry that they didn't see her today because she can't come today, but she is with us on Zoom. Okay, today what we're going to do in preparation for our upcoming truncated carnival that we're expecting to do in just a few weeks, which is the end of our semester. Look at the smiles. Okay, then the students are going to read the story from Hilda Joyce about But Grandma Tilly, it's Carnival, okay, which is a story that talks about a typical family and the background of the typical family. And as Carnival, traditionally Carnival has it, that there are surprises that occur during Carnival week, okay, and surprises and buried truths that come forward. And there's a few of those in our story as well. Okay, the persons who are going to be readers today, okay, Rashana James, Jasu Lima, Perla Lloyd, Ariella Paul, Levante Ravalier, and Daniel Willie, and Alyssa Pant. Okay, there's many more here in the audience that are going to be enjoying this, okay, but those are our primary persons. Okay, so I'm going to call them, it's a small podium right here, so we can only have one at a time. Okay, but they're going to be ready and to entertain and showcase their capabilities and their talents. Okay, so I welcome first Rashana. Come on up.
Good afternoon. The story I'm about to read is But Grandma Tilly, It's Carnival. Jamila, Jamila, Grandma Tilly shouted from the backyard through the window of her granddaughter's tiny bedroom. Yes, yes, Grandma, Jamila answered. Girl, it's 5 o'clock. Time to get ready for the show. If I have to call you one more time, that's it. Steel drum competition will go on without you this Sunday night. Yes, Grandma, Jamila answered again. Talking to her invisible companion, Grandma Tilly grumbled. Bella, I don't understand young people today at all. At all. I'm too old for this harassment. Maybe I need to send that girl to New York to that no-good, hot-headed mother of hers. That woman done already messed up my poor child Randolph. Drive he to drink. Drive he clean out his head. Grandma Tilly continued her monologue. One cocoa-colored hand akimbo, the other pressed against a sachet of camphor pinned to her underblouse as a safeguard against imagined evils. But you see, Bella, he wouldn't listen. No, Randolph had to have that smooth-haired Jezebel from Santo Domingo. And now look, he's locked up in the loony house, leaving me to raise this child that slack woman dropped off on my doorstep down there 16 years ago. You think it's easy? Jamila walked over to her listing dressing table between the time-faded spots on the centuries-old mirror. As she narrowed her dark brown eyes at her reflection and saw a face that her grandmother constantly reminded her is the spitting image of that mother of yours. She ran a large turtle shell comb through her long brown hair, which tumbled over her shoulders in waves. She picked up a tube of bright red lipstick, uncapped it, and spread her full lips apart, bringing out her deep dimple. Then, on second thought, she threw the lipstick on the dresser, not wanting to add more imagined likeness of her mother to the mirrored image. Jamila pulled on a pair of nylon stockings in her long, slender legs and slipped her feet into her flat-heeled gold shoes. Then she donned her Charlotte Amalie High School steel band uniform, a gold ruffled neck blouse, and a navy blue short pants, which showed her perfect figure. She stood back for a lengthier look in the mirror, pleased that Kyle would see the beauty she wanted to be hers alone, and connected to that of the woman who had given birth to her. She was certain his thick eyebrows would rise in admiration when they met at the end of the long, narrow dirt trail which sloped downhill adjacent to a freshwater gut. Jamila walked to the window and announced, "Grandma, I'll be home a little late tonight, okay? After the show finished, my friend Lucille and a bunch of us are going to Carnival tonight to get something to eat." "How late is a little late, young lady?" Grandma Tilly inquired. 10 o'clock, Grandma," trying to head off her grandmother's contrariness. She added, "But Grandma Tilly, it's Carnival. Everybody's going to be roasting a time." "Well, you better get home by 9 o'clock, you hear me? Decent girls don't belong on the street so late. And besides, tomorrow is Monday. You have to get up early for school." "But our steel pan teacher is going to chaperone us, Grandma." Okay. But make sure you get home no later than 10, or instead of you roasting a time, I'm going to roast your little bony behind." Jamila sucked her teeth and mumbled under her breath, "No matter how hard I try, that old woman continues to quarrel about everything I say, everything I do. I could hardly wait to graduate next year so I could get out of this hellhole." She flounced down the rickety steps of the board and shingle, four-room house to the overgrown dirt path, anxious to meet Kyle. "Jamila! Jamila!" The low humming sound of her name made her heart hammer hard in her chest. It was unnerving, spooky. She knew it wasn't Kyle's voice. Just then, Lucille's brother, Melvin, jumped out from the tall bushes behind her. He wrapped his messful, colored, wiry arm around her tiny waist and whispered between crooked yellow teeth and foul breath, "Hey, sweetie pie, you know I have the hots for you. When you going to give me a little chance, eh?" Jamila screamed. She scratched and dug her long fingernails into his bony hands, causing him to loosen his grip on her. She swung around and pushed hard, knocking him sideways into some catch-and-keep bushes. Melvin laughed and reached for her again. "Oi, yo. What a pair of luscious legs you got there, girl. Come let me feel them." Suddenly, Kyle appeared and grabbed Melvin in a strong chokehold. Melvin shouted, "Let go of me, man. What's wrong with you? Let me go." Kylie tightened his hold on Melvin. Okay, you the boss, Melvin whimpered. Kyle loosened his hold and threatened the boy. "If you ever say one more word to my girl ever again in life, you could kiss it goodbye. Got me?" Okay, Yankee Doodle Dandy. You stateside dudes think you better than us Centomian fellows? Just you wait and see." "Cut the crap, man," Kyle resorted. "Nobody told you to drop out of school, fool. Get a life." As Melvin backed away, he tripped and fell into the gutter. Jamila and Kyle laughed as the boy scrambled awkwardly to his feet again, and slipping and falling once more into the water. Shamefaced, he got up and ran down the rocky pathway to the main road. "Thank you, Kyle," Jamila sighed.
Bet that's the first bat that stinking idiot had in over a week. I hope that's the end of him at last. With a wide grin on his face, Kyle said, "Yeah, he and all those other bug-eyed boys who stare at my beautiful girl when they think I'm not looking. But seriously, I can't bear to think of anybody else talking to you, even looking at you. You belong to me and me alone." Kyle picked a beautiful yellow flower from a nearby frangipane tree and stuck it between the long strands of Jamila's hair. She fixed her eyes on him, taking in his light molasses-colored face and his light brown eyes, which reflected the same warmth she felt inside. His gold and navy blue CAHS steel band uniform showed off his muscular physique. When they arrived at the Lionel Roberts Stadium to begin the famous high school steel pan competition, Jamila and Kyle stood apart from the crowd. They wanted to spend as much time as they could alone with each other. They listened intently and critically to the music of their 5 high school competitors from St. Croix, Puerto Rico, Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad, the steel pan capital of the world. They became a bit nervous about the Trinidadian band, which had just received the most thunderous applause during its performance. At last, their turn came. Jamila stood behind her 14-note guitar pan. Kyle positioned himself behind the most highly regarded of all the pan instruments, his double tenor pans, which carried a melody. Positioned several pans away was Jamila's best friend, Lucille, who stood behind her 3-note bass pan. With smiles on their faces and pan sticks poised in the air, the teenagers waited for their band's introduction by Brownie of the original Side of Walter and Brownie, a hilarious dual personality radio show. With his stomach stretching the buttons of his shirt to their limit, Brownie bounced up to the front of the stage on exaggerated pigeon-toed feet, tripping and landing on his buttocks. The crowd squeals with laughter. Walter yelled out, "Brownie, it's the last time I'm going to help you to your feet. You're not but a big belly, bumbling buffoon." Brownie rose to his feet and said to his invisible partner, "Walter, wash him out. Speak only when you're spoken to, and answer only when you're called." Then with a wide grin on his mischievous face, Brownie shouted to all his audience, "And now, last but not least, the Charlotte Amalie High School Steel Pan Orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the pan players from this beautiful, spectacular, wonderful, magnificent, marvelous, enchanting island of St. Thomas. Let's see who's going to take home the first prize tonight." Good thing. The hills surrounding the ballpark became more alive with music as the CAHS band pounded out melodies that kept the crowd on its feet. The spectators waved their hands wildly in the air, and their screams reached a frenzy unmatched by that reached during the performances of the Trinidadian band. The beat went on: classical, merengue, mambo, calypso. The band started its last piece soft and slow, gradually increasing the tempo. Then, like the Soufri volcano in Montserrat, spewing outward and upward its fiery molten lava, the music reached its climax, loud and intense. Suddenly, a pin-dropping silence. It took the audience by surprise, but not for long. Within seconds, they screamed, "More, more, more." The band picked up where it left off. Then it stopped the music abruptly again. The crowd roared once more, drenched in sweat running down their armpits and shiny faces. The 6 bands waited anxiously for the winner to be announced. Brownie bellowed, "Family, friends, and countrymen, lend me your ears. In other words, shut up your mouth so you could hear who really the winner of the contest is. Lord, send help. You ready? Ready to hear who the winner is?" The noise started to die down, sounding like the hum from 1,000 bees inside a honeycomb. Brownie blared, Loquacious ladies and gentle fellows, born here or born elsewhere, boys and girls, old men and young she-things, bullfrogs and she-frogs, vagabonds and acculturated, tomcats and pussycats. Stop, stop, Walter shouted, irritated and hot under his invisible collar. Brownie, when are you going to stop your nonsense, eh? Why you like to harass the people, humbugging them up, always keeping them in suspense with your long, drawn-out, high-faulting vernacular. Then, insisted on taking over control of the show, he bellowed, "Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the steel pan competition is..." Before Walter could finish making the long-awaited announcement, Brownie screamed, "Walter, better shut up your Satola trap. I'm going to shut it up for you. I'm in charge here, not you." "Oh yeah? Oh yeah?" Walter retorted. "'Tis Walter and Brownie we name, you idiot, you. Not Brownie and Walter. Get the picture, old chap? Walter's name comes first. That means I'm in charge, not you." Brownie droned. "Lord, send help." Walter retaliated. "Yeah, he better send you help for true before bashing your double ugly, mashed down broad-nosed face." Brownie looked up at the sky and pleaded, "Lord, I beg you to please send help." Then he cocked his head to the side, twinkled his eyes like jolly old Saint Nick, and hollered, "Ladies and gentle fellows, don't pay Walter no mind. He's dumber than dumb bread. He can't stand being second fiddle." Someone in the audience yelled, "Brownie, you're the one who need to shut your trap. Walter is much better than you. We'll take Walter over you any day, anytime." The crowd shouted, "We want Walter. We want Walter." Brownie hung his head low with shame and went undercover for the balance of the show. Walter emerged triumphant and said, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for sending me the help instead of my dumb partner." Brownie, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the 1981 Carnival High School Steel Pan Jamboree is the Charlotte Amalie High School Steel Pan Orchestra. The crowd went wild again. The winners jumped up and down on the stage and ran around hugging each other. But before Kyle could embrace Jamila, Lucille jumped onto Jamila's back and sent her sprawling to the floor. Kyle helped her to her feet. They held hands and walked off the stage, feeling the ecstasy of the night's victory and the elation of their newfound love.
Hi, Jamila. Wait up, yo. Someone called out as Jamila and Kyle walked towards the carnival village. Jamila turned around. It was Lucille and two other girls from the band, hurrying to catch up with her. Kyle nodded, a greeting with a shake of his head to Lucille, who flashed him the famous West Indian cut-eye. "Where are you going now, Jamila?" Lucille asked. Her eyes still beamed on Kyle's face. "We're going to Carnival Village, and then after that, we're going to the road trip," Jamila replied. "See you in school tomorrow, okay?" Feeling dismissed by her friend, Lucille asked, "Jamila, how come I hardly see you anymore? How come you don't wait for me after school like you used to? Ever since you started talking to this Yankee Doodle dandy, you dropped me like a hot potato." The other girls rolled their eyes at Jamila and walked away. Jamila replied, "Because Kyle and me are boyfriend and girlfriend now, but that doesn't mean you and me couldn't still be friends. I'll look for you in school tomorrow during recess. Okay, Lucille?" Lucille pursed her full lips, narrowed her heavily made-up eyes, set in her raisin-colored face, threw her head back and grumbled, yeah, if you say so." Then she ran and caught up with her other two girls and whined, "If that girl can't be with me, then she can't be with nobody else." Lucille looked back at the couple as they danced away to the music, reverberating from the carnival village, then added, "Just wait and see how that half-crazy, grouchy grandmother of hers going to like what I have to tell her about her precious darling grandchild. Just you wait and see." One of the girls remarked, "Lucille, you're just jealous because she's prettier than you." The other girls snickered and added, "And boys like her better than you, even your own scruffy brother, Melvin." The first girl snarled, "And since you want that high and mighty girl to be your best friend so bad, you could just kiss our big butts goodbye from now on, with your picky hair self." Then she turned to the other girl and mocked, "Hairdressers don't even like to see she come in." "Why not?" the girl asked. Because Lucille's short nappy hair bends up their hot ironing combs," she replied. They doubled over in laughter and continued on their way. Lucille sucked her teeth and walked away in the opposite direction. When Jamila returned home, her grandmother met her at the front door and asked, "Jamila, didn't I tell you to be in this house by 10 o'clock? I have a mind not to tell you, go no place else for the rest of the carnival week." "But it's only 5 to 10, Jamila protested. "Don't give me no lip, girl. You think I can't tell the time? And who is this boy I hear you spending time with?" "You mean Kyle? He's just a friend. What's wrong with that?" Grandma Tilly shot back, "Because stateside boys have mouths smoother than kerosene oil. That's what's wrong with that." "Grandma, I told you, he's only a friend." One thing I always telling you, young lady, no ring, no thing. And that brimish, half-dressed friend of yours, Lucille, I'm warning you, keep away from she, you hear me? She's full of wickedness, you see she there. But Grandma Tilly, don't Grandma Tilly me. In fact, for the balance of Carnival Week, if you don't go out with your half-brother Rupert, you can't go out at all. It's more than time for him to start looking out for you, taking care of you. Since when is Rupert supposed to start taking care of me? He ain't my father. Girl, watch your mouth. Your mouth fast, just like that mother of yours. Rupert is 19 years older than you, old enough to take the place of your father. Randolph, Lord McCoy Randolph. Languishing in jail, all because of what that Jezebel did to him. Jamila covered her ears and ran into her bedroom. As she lay in bed, she heard her grandmother, as usual, talking to her unseen friend, Bella. Bella, since Rupert came back from New York 2 months ago, he's scarce like gold and elusive like mongoose. I don't understand men at all. But I thank the Lord I have you in my life. You're the only friend I have in this whole wide world. I'm so glad you came with me when I moved from Virgin Gorda to St. Thomas to live with my Auntie Viola in 1909 when I was just 6 years old. After a short pause, she continued, and Bella, if it wasn't for your patience and listening ears during all those years I was married to that no-good St. Tomian man Papa God gave me, guess I'd be crazy by now. What a trill-la-la I went through with that rotten scamp. But I'm grateful to God that out of that rotten mess I was able to bear a child, my precious son Randolph. Silence again, followed with, but you could bet 'tis hell that miserable dead husband of mine is in right now. Praise God, serves that drunken low-down mongrel right. Another pause followed with, okay, Bella, since you sick and tired of hearing my complaint. Okay, I'll let you sleep in peace tonight. But Bella, do you have to take over the whole bed? Woman, scoot over to the side so I could get some sleep too. While trying to fall asleep, Jamila murmured, maybe spending some time with that handsome half-brother I hardly know ain't such a bad idea after all. But I hope nothing ain't wrong with him too. Seems like the members of my family are either crazy, drunkards, good-for-nothings, jailbirds, or dead.
Early Monday night, Jamila stood with Rupert in front of the Carnival Village booth. Her heart did a pleasant somersault when she saw Kyle approaching. Just then, her brother put his arm around her and started introducing her to some of the village friends. Kyle stopped a few feet in front of her and said, so it's true what Lucille said about you, that you have another boyfriend. No, actually, an old sugar daddy. Jamila slipped out of Rupert's embrace and said, Kyle, I can explain. But before she could finish her sentence, Lucille appeared and grabbed Kyle's hand. As they walked away, Lucille looked back at Jamila with a smirk on her face. Jamila became oblivious to the sounds of the music blaring from the village stage and to the merriment of the village crowd, also to the presence of Melvin, who was stalking her under the shield of the crowd and the watchful, suspicious eyes of Rupert. On Tuesday night, while dancing to the music of the Fungi band, with Rupert's arm draped protectively across her shoulders, Jamila spotted Kyle and Lucille in the rambunctious road march crowd a few feet in front of her. Lucille moved her voluptuous hips in front of Kyle from side to side and front to back as she hugged her with slippery hands around her sweaty, belt-tighted waist. On Wednesday morning, Jamila awoke to the clamor of, Jamila, get yourself up off bed. Girl, while you was out last night shaking up yourself in the village and road tramp, I was home doing all this cooking by myself for the food fair this morning. You just as lazy as that mother of yours. Get up and help me stir this fungi and fry the plantains. But it's only 4 o'clock in the morning, Jamila protested. Girl, you think I can't tell time? Get yourself up from bed. You're going to be the death of me yet. You're going to put me in my grave before my time. By 8 o'clock, the food fair through on the historic Rothschild Francis Market Square was unbelievably jammed into each other like sardines in can. The euphoria of the day was infectious as the people escaped the world of order and wallowed in the excitement of the day. They poured over stew mutton, whelks, and rice, bullfoot soup, salt, fish, and dumplings, as a myriad of other local mouth-watering delights. Dusted over lightly with talcum powder, Grandma Tilly thought her proud face was cracked from the black plaster smile she returned to hundreds of well-wishers who heaped compliments of her for being the 1981 Carnival Food Fair Queen. While Jamila was spooning some callaloo into a bowl for one of her grandmother's customers, she looked across the crowd and saw Lucille sliding a piece of guava berry tart into Kyle's mouth. Suddenly, she felt hurt lifting from her anger taking in place. Okay, she grumbled under her breath. So I've lost you to my so-called best friend. So what? There's still Melvin. Maybe I'll start talking to him. Just for spite. And talking about the devil, there he is again, peeking through the crowd at me. Oh Lord, I can't stand that boy. Something is really, really wrong with him. He's sick in his head. Jamila, Grandma Tilly shouted from a large peacock bamboo chair presented to her as a gift by the carnival committee. Why don't you watch what you're doing? You almost spilled that hot soup on the lady. Then she whispered, Bella, where am I? I'm going to put this humongous piece of furniture. They should have given us a bigger house to put it in. And besides, this thing is beginning to hurt my posterior. Jamila barely heard her grandmother's scolding as she started to plan in her head the balance of the carnival week's activities. I think I'll skip Thursday's juve. I can't go to the school on Thursday feeling sleepy. I need to have a clear head to deal with Miss Lucille when she comes red-eyed to school tomorrow after juve. That floozy doesn't know who she's messing with. Yes, ma'am, showdown time has come. Think I'll also skip the children's parade on Friday as well. She looked across the crowd again and saw Lucille planting a kiss on Kyle's cheek. Lucille waved and flashed Jamila's another of her sinister smiles. Jamila continued in her mind, oh, but I have a score to settle once and for all with that kiss face Kyle. I'm surely going to play in our steel pan orchestra in the adult parade on Saturday. Yes, sir. Can't miss showdown time on Saturday.
At 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, Rupert took Grandma Tilly to her regular spot along the adult parade route to sell her infamous coconut dumb bread, fried Johnny cakes, and saltfish patés. Jamila took her time getting dressed for the parade. Her band was a 39th entry and it was not expected to move out of the lineup before noon. She did not want to get there too early to be in Kyle's presence any longer than she had to. She turned on the radio and listened to a tape interview between Brownie and his uncle, Alwyn Ladd Richards, a legend in the music world, especially in the Virgin Islands where he was born in 1914, and in Miami and Las Vegas where he rubbed shoulders with such entertainment giants as Dizzy Gillespie, Roy Hamilton, and Sammy Davis Jr. Then she listened to another interview between Walter and one of the Caribbean's greatest calypsonians, Mighty Chalk Dust. She swayed her hips with quick-footed steps and sang along with Mighty Chalk Dust at the end of the interview as he belted out the lyrics of one of his songs, Why Smut. At 12:15, Jamila meandered down the narrow dirt path. She stood on a large rock and gazed at Walter, still trickling through the gutter after a long-awaited rain had fallen in torrents on the parched, thirsty hillsides. She was hoping to see the return of shrimps, which once abounded in the gutters. Instead, she saw a solitary one, taking leave in a backward movement from beneath the shelter of a submerged rock. She smiled as another of her grandmother's griping to her invisible friend came to mind. Bella, it's a shame how the building boom of the 60s and 70s done mess up our island. A crying shame what our government's letting people do in the name of progress. Lots of gutters covered over, and the gutter shrimps gone to hell. Lots of fruit trees bulldozed out of the ground, and a bunch of boats dropping filthy cuckoo in our mangrove lagoons. Rich white people putting up a fence, locking us out of our own beaches. Bella, this place has gone to hell for sure. For sure. Jamila walked closer to the gutter's edge, wearing a pool-like collection of torpid water. She came face to face again with her mother's reflection. This time she allowed herself to reminisce. Mommy, when I was very little and lonely as a sparrow, I used to gaze at your reflection in the water and talk to you. Remember? Suddenly, another reflection appeared in the water right over her head. Jamila yelled, grabbed the stone, and jumped to her feet. Two evil eyes glared at her through a pair of holes in nylon stocking, which covered the face of a Mokujumbi branding a large wooden stick. Jamila threw the stone at her would-be assailant, and it landed on the person's forehead. She ran, tripping and falling as the stiltless Mokujumbi gave chase. At last, she remembered the main road where multitudes of parade viewers provided the safety she needed. The adult parade was well underway. Paraders in their exotic and colorful costumes bounced into a cacophony of sounds emitting from the various brass bands, steel bands, scratch bands, soca bands, and fungi bands. Fabulous floats decorated in a splendor of color and creativity inched up the street. Stilt walking, elevated Mokujumbis in colorful silks and satins mesmerized the spectators lined up along the parade route. Jamila reached the truck bed which housed her high school steel band. She climbed aboard the slow-moving vehicle that was just coming into view in front of the judges' reviewing stand at the infamous Grand Hotel Square. Without a word to Kyle, she took her position next to him. She looked at him out of the sides of her eyes and thought, he's changed. His hair is short and his face looks hard like rock stone. He must not be too happy with Miss Lucy Goosey. Good for him. Serves him right. No need for me to continue my Saturday revenge. Just then, Rupert, wearing a WSTA radio station t-shirt with mic in hand, trotted over to the vehicle and shouted, "Hi, sis. Why don't you come down and tell the folks in Radio Land about the victorious CAHS Steel Pan Orchestra? Come on down." Kyle grabbed her hand and said, "Jamila, I didn't know Rupert was your brother." As Jamila walked to exit the truck, she looked over to the spot where Lucille would have been standing had it not been for the accident she had on Thursday in school when she fell down the steps and sprained one of her fingers. With a shrewd look on her face, Jamila smiled.
Two Mokojumbis danced over to Jamila and kicked their stilted legs towards her as she dismounted the truck. One of them wore the same costume as her would-be attacker. Suddenly, Rupert tripped and fell against their stilts. Both Mokojumbis catapulted to the ground. Parade officials ran to the duo and pulled off the mask and head coverings to inquire about the injuries. Melvin lay sprawled out on his back, writhing in pain from his broken, twisted leg. Lucille had landed on her buttocks. Except for a gash on her forehead and a bandaged finger, she seemed to be unhurt by the fall. "Rupert, are you all right?" Jamila asked. He laughed and said, "Of course, sis. Only God and I know why I stumbled against those stilts. By the way, why don't you come spend tonight at home with me on Skyline Drive so we could look at the fireworks over the harbor together, okay? Bring your boyfriend with you." Jamila returned to the truck and resumed her position next to Kyle. The eyes met and held, and volumes were said without words. Beating against the center of the shiny metal barrels with the purest sounds emanated, the couple recaptured the fervor of their musical prowess and the festive spirit of the day. Kyle hit his lead drums with such exuberance that it augmented the feet-stomping, hip-shaking music to heights never before experienced by his bandmates. The judge and roadside spectators experienced the musical treat of their lives. The parade continued past the reviewing stand on its way to the Lionel Roberts Stadium, where the paraders put their final demonstrations for an overly excited, mesmerized crowd. Carnival 1981 was well on its way to making another page of Virgin Islands history. When Jamila and Kyle walked into Rupert's home to view the fireworks, he remarked warmly, "Little sis, you are truly as beautiful as your mother was." "Was? Did you say was?" Jamila asked. "Yes. Of course I said was," Rupert replied. "What do you mean?" Why are you saying was? Jamila, don't you know? Don't I know what? Didn't our grandmother tell you? Tell me what? About your mother. I'm sick and tired of grandma talking about my mother. I hate my mother. Sometimes I think I hate myself too. Because of her, as far as I'm concerned, that woman could just drop dead and go to hell. Rupert cupped her hands in his and said, I can't believe grandma never told you. Your mother died shortly after you were born from the stress of living with an alcoholic man and a broken heart shortly after our father, died. Our father is dead too? She asked with a distant look in her eyes. And my mother didn't really drop me off on grandma's steps like a little mangy puppy dog. Rupert stifled a laugh and said, no, sis. But one thing you can be sure about, grandma loves you very much and is bent on protecting you, like a tigress protects her cubs. But why would she lie about my mother, saying such mean things about her? And why would she lie about our father, that he's in a crazy house? Because she never got over the loss of her one and only child, first to alcohol and then to his early grave. She keeps him alive in her mind and your mother as well, so she could have someone to blame for her loss. What about you, Rupert? What about your mother? When I was 3, my mother left our father and moved to New York, where I grew up. She couldn't take his drinking and carousing anymore. She still lives there. So my mother didn't deserve me after all, Jamila murmured. Rupert hugged his sister and said, Grandma is old now. Maybe we should just let her live out the balance of her life in the fantasy of her thoughts. Okay, sis? Jamila looked affectionately at her brother and said, okay, Rupert. Suddenly, the star-studded sky burst out in a kaleidoscope of colors as the boats in the harbor discharged the first blast of fireworks, signaling the end of another carnival season, and for Jamila, a future brighter than most flamboyant costumes worn by the revelers of Carnival 1981.
According to Dorothy C. Lockhart Elsco, co-founder of Elsco and Associates Carnival Prize-winning flukes, proprietor of Native Arts and Crafts Cooperative in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, whose afterward states, not only does this enjoyable human interest story keep the carnival art form, the culture, and the spirit of our people alive, but it carries our unique legacies into the 21st century for our younger generations to experience and to preserve, and for our visitors to delight in.
Okay, there you have it. That is the entire story of Grandma Tilly. Grandma Tilly and all her secrets. Okay, now to conclude, I'd like to just share a couple of the artworks, okay, that were actually completed. The artwork from Hilda Joyce. These are the, Hilda, if you're still there, these are the original books that I received from you a long time ago. You have signed them and I'm in them. And here's another, everybody has a story to tell. Little Jack and his donkey. You can see the artwork, gorgeous artwork. Okay, here it is, but Grandma Tilly, it's Carnival. These are some of the charcoal displays. And all of these are going to be left here in the UVI library in the Caribbean room. They're being donated because they are to be shared with everyone. I'm not keeping them in the envelope at my house anymore. And I don't know if you remember this one. Okay, so these will now be here in the Caribbean room, and Hilda gave me this newest, okay, her newest booklet, or actually book, of several new stories. And these will be available. And as soon as she has them on island, I'm sure they're going to be snapped up because people are asking me, where did you get that book? Okay, so folks, with that, this completes the program for the National Library Week that's been sponsored and put on by the English area at UVI and the students of English 101. Dr. Harkins-Pierre. Okay, I'm going to thank everyone for being present today, and let's go eat. Okay, all done.